thank you all for making the drive out here today on this kind of somewhat rainy day, but we're in luck. The rain has stopped. Outstanding. So I would like to give you a little bit of context. I know a lot of you know the story, but just in case you don't, about why we're here today. And then Jessica Harney, I'm going to say the brainchild and the leader of this project, will give you the history, and we'll have a number of other speakers. But if you didn't know, today we will be dedicating a replacement marker for the association. It was originally installed, I think, in 2017, although the sign says 2016, right? And so the History Center served as the nonprofit sponsor for the application, but it was really Jessica who worked with her students and a number of other individuals to put together the application, write it, and we simply submitted it. So thanks to Jessica and her team for all their hard work. I think you all know she's a high school teacher and historian who led the charge. What else do I want to tell you? Sadly, the sign was stolen or vandalized in January 2022, or the winter of 2022 when it was discovered. Jessica made some attempts to get some insurance money, which did not work out, so she approached us to raise money for a new marker, which would be about $1,500. She also approached the Pomeroy Foundation, who offered to put up half. And so we said, perfect, we will do a mini fundraiser. So this April, in honor of National Historic Marker Day, which I think is the last Friday in April, we launched in April and we raised the money in just 6 days. So fantastic. I don't even think I got to post it on social media. I think between doing e-newsletters and kind of email chains and reaching out to our community, it was fantastic. So yeah, I'd like to take this time to thank our donors. So Mr. John Bonacella, who is, you want to give a wave? You don't have to if you want, but he's here. He's also highway superintendent, right? And he's done a number of other pieces here to help secure it, which I'm sure Jessica will. So very integral. Ralph and Beth Bosted, Kelly Cardwell, Maylin Clark, Linda Dittrich, Janine Eckel, Mary Ford, Jessica Harney, Sybil and Dennis Johnson, John Killian, Lou Parada, Paul and Mary Lynn Stewart, Bernadette Van Walken, and Scott or Dorothy Wilsey in Norm Dam. We are thrilled that this historic marker is being reinstalled because it represents not only the hard work and dedication of this team, but of those who actually ran the Florence Farming and Lumber Association. The story of the association is an important piece of both our local and state history. So today I'd like to not only thank the donors, but for everybody who contributed in the community in some way. So thank you for all being here. And I will next introduce Jessica Harney, which I think you all know, and she will give you some history. Woo. Sorry.
Freshly planted grass. Sorry. I do want to thank you all for attending now the second dedication of the historical marker of the Florence Farming and Lumber Association. Unfortunately, Rebecca mentioned the first marker, original marker, was removed, and thanks to the highway team for noticing that it was missing and finding out who they were to contact, and getting a hold of me, and John was able to do that. In spite of that senseless act of vandalism, we can see here today that there are a lot of people that are dedicated and invested in maintaining public history here in this space. Since our initial dedication in 2017, this site here has hosted more than 100 students, volunteers, historians, and researchers, hands-on learning and field experience side by side with professionals in the social sciences. And it's occurred here in the same place that Black farmers were working on their own hands-on learning experiences while they were setting out to essentially start a new life here in the mid-1800s. And many of you know the stories. I'll tell a little bit about that. I'll try not to go too long, but most of us know that in the New York State Constitution of 1821, there was a clause that required free Black men to own real estate worth at least $250 in order to be able to vote. It was only black men that were treated in such a way and that required to have land. And so Gerrit Smith, a wealthy abolitionist, sought to remedy that situation. He's going to do that. At first, there's a large group that's campaigning for a referendum to amend the law in 1846. When that fails by a large margin, they're then able to, Gerrit Smith decides to give away a significant amount of land. He's going to distribute lands to black men for the purposes of farming, but the intent was to also have enough property to be able to vote. Gerrit Smith elicited the help of agents to facilitate the distribution of 120,000 acres of land to 3,000 African Americans of New York. And it was through the words of those agents that we learn about the experiences for the landowners and their expectations in particular. Written by Theo Wright, Charles Ray, and James McCune Smith, of which were those agents, they stated, "You will have to cut down the lumber, erect dwellings therefrom, till the land, and undergo the labor and privations incident to pioneer cultivators. Though formidable in appearance, they are, and in instance, not half so hard as the difficulties and privations cheerfully undertaken and surmounted by thousands of men in this republic. And what other men can do, you may do." In 1846, notable black abolitionist Stephen Myers from Albany obtained land in Florence from Gerrit Smith, likely part of that same Smith's land scheme. And however, it does appear that Stephen Myers takes this in a very different direction than some of the other landowners. While most landowners were setting out on their own, Myers sought to establish more of a shared communal settlement in which landowners could pool their resources, their skills, and network together. With the help of other new black landowners, they organized the Florence Farming and Lumber Association, and that organization is going to be, for the purpose of facilitating settling this land, this planned community. They're going to promote, recruit, and train black farmers in agrarian skills. They're going to employ a set of agents around the Northeast for recruitment. They would utilize the full power of the abolitionist press to promote these opportunities. And this strategy likely made a big difference in the sustainability of this settlement in comparison to other black settlements further north in the Adirondacks. The one that I'm particularly thinking of is the more popularly remembered Timbuktu site, which was assisted by John Brown. And although this site was less researched over time of the Timbuktu settlement, there's substantial primary sources that exist that document a pretty clear narrative that what they were doing here was something very special and organized and collaborative. And unlike Timbuktu, the Florence settlement experienced some advantages of proximity to trade in Camden and Rome and Utica, and then further with an outlet to many other places through use of the Erie Canal. And we also can check in and know, based on newspaper evidence, that they were well on their way to this communal progress. So in 1849, newspaper from Sag Harbor, New York, highlights their progression. And I'm just going to read an excerpt of that. And it shows us that they're continuing to promote their enterprise. They identify it as Gerrit Smith's colored settlement in Florence, New York. Says it is now in full progress. A building to hold 70 families will be finished by the 1st of January. The property has plenty of water power, and grist and sawmills have been projected. Mr. Smith has given a number of farms to enterprising colored persons, and the Florence Association intend to purchase several hundred acres around them. And in the settlement, the village lots are selling for $3 per lot, and those contain a quarter of an acre each, which will enable each person to have 30 acres with the advantage of the timber. There are a lot of historians that say the community failed before it began, but we should be cautious to use our modern interpretation of success when we're studying the past. Research of historic materials like the deeds, maps, tax records, land transfers, census documents, and newspapers and letters all have assisted in developing a stronger narrative of what was happening here. And also, as we're here on this site, and the sign states that it is near here that this settlement existed. We do know that from those records, from the years 1850 to 1860, 50 to 80 black residents lived and worked in freedom in Florence, New York. All of that occurs in spite of the many challenges of the land, the overwhelming labor required. You're seeing a heavily forest plot here. They would have experienced something even thicker than what you see here today. Overwhelming labor in order to have a sustainable farm in this part of the state, and they were here in spite of a hostile and divisive political climate leading up to the Civil War, and of course the underlying risk of fear and of capture. I promise I'm almost done. It is our hope that further research can reveal further details about the lives of people like Daniel Benton, George Washington, Joseph Youngs, Walter Hawkins, Nathaniel Lawrence, Daniel McCoy, Henry Simmons, just to name a few, and the many others that appear in the 1850 and 1860 census. Several of the residents were formerly enslaved, and it is our hope that with that information, that knowledge, we can then apply to the National Park Service, Network to Freedom recognition for this site being a destination site for freedom seekers. We have other stories that go along with that, and that'll strengthen the argument in talking about some of the sites that are the people that are a little bit more well known, like Walter Hawkins. For our understanding of what he presents, he talks about, in a biography that's written about him, he talks about the heavy winters here. And for those of us that are familiar with the Tug Hill winters, I think that alone can corroborate that he was here. Right? We will say their names, and we will tell their stories so that they can have a legacy, and we have more than rock and well foundations here in the forest. These black pioneers of Florence will be remembered. And with that, I would like to introduce Mary Liz Stewart from the Underground Railroad Education Center in Albany, New York, to tell us a little bit more about what they're doing and the Stephen Myers legacy as well. So thank you so much for coming.
Well, it's an honor and a really great opportunity to be here today with all of you to celebrate the story of the Florence Farming and Lumber Association and to rededicate this space. In the late 1840s, Stephen Myers and others came here to seek a space where African Americans could live, work, grow roots, and qualify to vote. They sought to establish a community that embodied the freedom that they sought. While, Stephen Myers, among others, have a presence here, we also are in sort of long-term pursuit of restoring, Underground Railroad Education Center is in long-term pursuit of restoring the Stephen and Harriet Myers residence in Albany as a way to both acknowledge and remember the justice work, not only of Stephen and Harriet Myers, but their colleagues with whom they worked. Stephen Myers himself was born enslaved in Rensselaer County. He was manumitted in 1818. Over the next decade, he established himself as an activist, and as early as 1831, there are documents indicating that he began helping freedom seekers from enslavement, eventually becoming a leader in the Underground Railroad movement in Albany. He helped thousands to gain their freedom, distinguishing himself as a dedicated, hardworking, innovative, and visionary activist who believed that his efforts to bring about a just world could yield results. Underground Railroad Education Center is grateful to Jessica Harney and the students of Camden High School for keeping alive the memory and the place of the Florence Farming and Lumber Association. And a thank you is extended to all of those in the community for their work in preserving this history.
I would like to introduce and as well as thank the William G. Pomeroy Foundation Jodi Oaks is here on their behalf, and it is because of them that we were able to have the first sign, and also they supported the second replacement sign in a really big way. So thank you, Jodi, and welcome.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Jodi Oaks. I'm a research historian at the William G. Pomeroy Foundation. I actually live over in Lee Center, so I'm absolutely thrilled to see this marker back in place, and thank you so much for letting me join you today. On behalf of the Pomeroy Foundation, I offer congratulations on your work to commemorate the history of the Florence Farming Association, the trailblazing 19th century African American community established at this site. Your community answered the call after the original historical marker went missing, and the Pomeroy Foundation is proud to support your collective efforts to fundraise for a replacement marker to recognize this important site. At the Pomeroy Foundation, one of our main initiatives is to help people celebrate their community's history. And we do this by offering grants for historical markers and plaques, as well as some other history-related initiatives such as National Historic Marker Day. And it is the last Friday of April. We feel strongly that markers help educate the public, encourage pride of place, and promote historic tourism. And being able to tell the story of the Florence Farming Association through the lens of a marker is important. And by doing so, you're making your local history a priority. Thank you to Oneida County History Center, Oneida County Freedom Trail Commission, Jessica Harney, and the students and volunteers at the Camden High School, Florence Highway Department Supervisor John Vancella for his excellent installation of the new marker, and all those involved with making this replacement marker possible. It's been your hard work and dedication that will help this history live on today and for future generations. From all your friends in history at the Pomeroy Foundation, congratulations.
We would love you to join us. So we're going to unveil the replacement marker, and it is just like the first one, but it is it's also really meaningful to do it at this time because it needs to be here. So on behalf of the Oneida County Freedom Trail Commission, the Oneida County History Center, and the Stephen and Harriet Myers residents, and the Underground Railroad Education Center, we will unveil.
Nice.
Yay!
Mary Liz, yes. So we can see you.
Yeah, yeah.
There you go.
Strike a pose, strike a pose.
We will also have some time at the end
Strike
for
a pose,
photos.
there
We
you
have,
go,
two
that's
more
it.
things.
Okay.
Cool.
Okay, and the next part of our program is a song in memory and honor of the black farmers that forged a life here, albeit a short time that they were here. We have representing the Garrett Smith Estate and the National Abolition Hall of Fame and Museum out of Peterborough. We have Max Smith, so come on down and join us.
Good to be here. I'm so proud of Jessica and this effort and what's happening here. A descendant as I am of slaves who came north for freedom, this kind of thing is always very moving to me. The song I want to sing in memory of those folks who were here, I hope wherever they are they're listening, was recorded in the 1930s. The Smithsonian Institution realized that many of the slaves were dying, and so they set out to record stories and other things that were specific to that slave history. And there was a gentleman named Elijah Cox who was, among many other things, was also a buffalo soldier in the 1870s in Texas. And he got a hold of the Smithsonian and recorded this song for them. I'm thinking today about times passed away, how they tied us up in bondage long ago. It was in old Virginia state is where we'd separate, and it fills my heart with misery and woe. Well, they took away my boy, and he was his mother's joy. From a baby in the cradle, him we raised, and it broke the old man's heart when they tore us all apart in those agonizing, cruel slavery days. At night when all is dark, we hear the watchdogs bark, and we listen to the murmurs on the wind. The wind seemed to say to me, you people must be free, for the happy times are coming, Lord, we pray. My memory will steal o'er that dear old cabin floor, and in the shadows I see those that passed away, and for them we'll weep and mourn, for their souls were not their own in those agonizing, cruel slavery days. Though they'll never come again, let us give our praise to him who looks down where the little children pray. For every night and every morn, let's pray for them that's gone in those agonizing, cruel slavery days. I'm old and feeble now, my hair is turning gray, and I've traveled down the roughest kind of roads. Through all the toils and sorrows I've come, and I've reached my end at last. So I'm sitting by the wayside with my load. Forget now and forgive has always been our guide, for that's what the good Lord's scripture says. But my memory will always turn back to when I was tied down in those agonizing, cruel slavery days.
your gift of music. The forest here provides a really serene theater, and this is such an honor that you were able to join us and share your gift with us, so thank you. I would like to close by expressing my gratitude. I want to thank the William G. Pomeroy Foundation for their excellent support and communication and passion for preserving local history, and their generosity to offer us a community match for half of the funds to support the purchase of the replacement sign. And of course, thank you, Jodi, for joining us as well. I want to thank Mr. Bonsella for his loyalty and pride in local history here, his willingness to not only assist in developing a stronger, better foundation with his incredibly talented team from the Florence Highway Workers. And then I also want to thank John and the groups for their generous donations of their time, John for his funds towards the replacement as well as installation materials. Thank you to Scott Otram and the Florence Town Board. Scott Otram is the town supervisor. Thank you to Rebecca McLain and Patrick Reynolds from the Oneida County History Center for co-hosting the event, as well as hosting the fundraiser on your website, and so much more. Thank you to my colleagues of the Oneida County Freedom Trail Commission, Jan Diamicis and Mary Hayes Gordon and Deirdre Sinnott, who are all here today. Their tireless efforts to celebrate the abolition history of Oneida County has produced extensive materials that are available to the public through work that they've done on the Fort Stanwix Underground Railroad History Project. It's an honor to work with researchers of your dedication and passion. Thank you, Paul and Mary Liz Stewart of the Stephen and Harriet Myers Residence and Underground Railroad History Center Education Center for your generous donation towards the marker and, of course, speaking here today. The work you're doing for history reaches far beyond the Albany region, and you've become leaders in the state in this field, so thank you. Thank you, Matt Kirk, who is unable to make it today, for lending his expertise and leadership from Hartgen Archaeological Associates and sharing his knowledge with Camden students on our fieldwork experiences. Thank you, Chuck Vandry, New York State DEC Agency Historic Preservation Officer, who also continues to support our field experiences, as well as Jocelyn Ferguson. I also want to thank many supporters from the New York State DEC, especially Region 6 Forester Jessica Mosier, who has joined us several times with the students. Thank you all to the local groups that have engaged with enthusiasm for this site, such as the New York State Tug Hill Commission. Thank you, Jennifer. Thank you to Dr. Norm Dan and Dot Wilsey from Garrett Smith Estate and National Abolition Hall of Fame and Museum for their public history preservation and education efforts. They light a spark in many people, but especially me, to study this history. And more recently, we have been really grateful for lots of new collaborations with the New York State Archives Partnership Trust, New York State Museum, and New York State historian Devin Lander. Thank you to my husband, David, for always stepping up to support this passion project of mine. And lastly, I want to thank my Camden High School MVCC dual credit, U.S. History, and New York State History students, and all of the educator volunteers that have joined us for our day of education in the Florence Hill Forest classroom here, essentially. These students push themselves outside of their comfort zone to learn new skills. They have an opportunity to come away with an appreciation for public history, which is an essential part of a civic education. And we look forward to further development of fieldwork experiences with new partnerships to uplift this story. This is the kind of work that cannot be done alone. It's many teams, and I'm sorry that the thank yous are even going this long, but it's the most important part. It is the reason that we're here today. So of course, thank you all for coming out today. There are still many stories to learn about this settlement, and I pledge, and I know many others do as well, to continue to uncover this important American history and further develop a narrative of the Black farmers and entrepreneurs that settled here in Florence, New York. Please feel free to take photos of the site, and if you are, please share on social media and tag William G. Pomeroy Foundation or Oneida County History Center. Thank you so much for your love of history that I share with you. So thank you. Yes.
We invite everybody. We have some cookies and water if you'd like some refreshments.
And photos.
And photos, whatever you'd like.